In chapter 13, we had talked about, first of all, what a spinal nerve is. And it was so funny this weekend. I was like, man, that just really gets on my nerves. And I was riding like with my husband, and I got ready to say, should I name a nerve? And I know he'd probably just be like, but because we've been talking about it, I was like, I could give him the name of a nerve, that y'all can do that. Like say, oh man, it's getting on my last nerve. After this, y'all could be able to say, it's getting like on my trigeminal nerve. And that way, see what happens when people do that. Anyway, we talked about what a spinal nerve is. Hopefully, have made the distinction between the central nervous system and our peripheral, which is what's going to have the spinal nerve. The other part that we had begun talking about, we began talking about how information has to travel. The information, remember, we have to have information go in, and we got to have a response come out. So we mentioned these ascending and descending tracks. One of the other parts that we talked about was how that information passes. If you remember, we had a first order neuron, second order neuron, third order. And then even though your text is going to go into great detail talking about each of these tracks, okay? Remember, I want you to more understand. First of all, we've got the ascending, got the descending, and their name is based upon where the information will start and where the information will end. Okay? So, for example, corticospinal. That means it started in the cortex of the brain, and it's going to end in the spinal cord, meaning we get the response for information that had just ascended. Does that make sense? All right, so one of the things that we have to remember, information needs to go in, meaning we're going to have some type of sensory receptor. That receptor sends the information to the area of the spinal cord. It goes up an ascending track into the area of the brain that it needs to go to. Once information is processed, that response has to travel down to the spinal cord and then to what is known as the effector. So you have the ascending tract and you've got descending tract. The name of the ascending tract, for example, spinothalamic. What was one of the areas for one of those neurons? The thalamus. Okay? Thalamus, for example, was the third order neuron. So if I am on an ascending track, okay? If it's ascending, first of all, where does the information start? I gotta have it start at a receptor, and I just kind of use my hand because that's kind of easy to deal with. Okay? So if I had some type of stimulus, since I'm using my hand, okay, for me to know this, all right, I've got receptors. Is that correct? From that receptor, where does it go? To my spine. Spino. Does that make sense? The spine. Salvus. So that means it traveled up, and where did that stimulus go? To my brain. Now that was the information that came in. What has to happen with that information? If it made it to my brain, what's my brain going to do with it? Process it. If it processes it, it's going to give me a response. Okay? Now remember, the thalamus was a relay station. So all this sensory information right here got sent to the area of the brain it needed to go to. So that response to let me know I'm doing this, okay, the effectors, okay, the processing that took place started here, cortex of my brain, and it went where? To my spine, so that I'm doing this. Does that make sense? For an ascending, the track that it travels is telling you where it started, where it ended. For the descending, tells you where it started, where it ended. Okay? So it's not that I want you to know every little detail about the track, because I think the book's going to go into great detail about that. I just want you to kind of understand that process that we just had. Any questions? Okay? So now, as we move forward, what we're, oh, whoa. Cool, I learned something new today. Yay. Okay, so now, if we're going to learn about this information, how we're going to have the information go up, how we're going to have a response come down, nerves. Oh, good, he's still here. But he's way broke. Okay, all right, so once again, these are representing my spinal nerve. Okay? All these yellow things that are poking out between the bones. All these yellow things poking out. Okay? Now here's the thing. This is part of that peripheral nervous system. These nerves okay, so these nerves, we say they are mixed. The reason for that this is the only one that's extending. It's one of those 31 pairs. That means information from that sensor has to be able to travel into that nerve. The response has to be able to travel out the nerve. So that tells me I have both afferent and efferent fibers. In other words, information travels both directions. It travels in and it travels out. So our peripheral nervous system, those spinal nerves, are mixed. That's their term for them. A nerve itself, a cord-like organ. Up to this point, pretty much everything that we have talked about, well, not we, I guess I should say y'all with your other professors, everything has pretty much had 3 layers, right? Endo, epi, myo, all these things, right? 3 layers, same thing. If we look at a nerve, and if we begin to take one segment, does everybody remember a segment? The anterior and the posterior, okay? This is exiting between the bones. If you look at this one segment right here would be what is found under one of these vertebrae. All right? So if you were to take this bone, cut it loose, that's what it looks like under that bone. So if I have this mixed nerve coming in, and I've got information that has to come in, information that has to come out, and we get the forking that took place, what begins to happen, they form what is termed rootlets. So what you see entering on the anterior and the posterior side, as that nerve branches and branches and branches and branches and branches and branches, these are termed rootlets. We have our posterior root feeding to the posterior side of the spinal cord. We've got anterior feeding into the anterior side. On the posterior side is where you find the posterior root ganglion. You're going to find the term ganglion. Now, when you hear that, what is that kind of, what do you think about when you hear it? Something swollen. Anything else? Well, ganglion, when people hear ganglion, they might have known someone that might have had like a ganglion on their wrist or something to that effect. The term, I wish somebody would have been a little more inventive and laughed, okay, on those days, but they weren't, all right? So, when you hear the term ganglion, let it tell you this is an area of nerve cell body. Okay? Because you're going to hear that term quite a bit. When you hear the term ganglion, let it tell you nerve cell body.